In the winter of 1886, something impossible happened in the quiet farming community of Cedar Falls, Iowa. Three children were born to Martha and Edmund Whitmore on February 14th, Valentine's Day, but these were not ordinary children. These triplets came into the world bearing a condition so disturbing that the attending physician, Dr. Samuel Morrison, would later describe it in his private journals as an abomination against the natural order of creation itself. The triplets were born without faces. Where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been, there was only smooth, unbroken skin stretched tight over what appeared to be normal skull structure underneath. Yet somehow, impossibly, all three children were breathing. They were alive, moving their tiny limbs, and according to every witness present, they were crying tears that seemed to emerge from beneath the seamless flesh where their eyes should have been. Dr. Morrison's detailed medical records, discovered in 1923 during the renovation of the old Cedar Falls Medical College, provide the most complete account of this extraordinary case. His handwriting, typically neat and precise, becomes increasingly erratic as his entries progress through those first crucial days after the birth. In his initial report, dated February 15, 1886, he writes with clinical detachment about conducting the most thorough examination of his career, using every instrument and technique available to late 19th century medicine. The doctor's measurements were precise and disturbing. Each child's head circumference was normal for newborn triplets. X-ray technology would not become available for another decade, so Dr. Morrison relied on careful palpation and external examination. He discovered that beneath the smooth facial skin, the bone structures appeared completely normal. He could feel what seemed to be eye sockets, nasal bones, and jaw structures in their proper positions. Yet the overlying tissue showed no openings, no natural formations that would allow for breathing, eating, or sight. Perhaps most unsettling was Dr. Morrison's observation about their breathing patterns. The children's chests rose and fell in perfect synchronization, as if controlled by a single consciousness. When one would begin to cry, the other two would follow within seconds, their voices harmonizing in what the doctor described as an otherworldly chorus that chills the soul to hear. The Whitmore family had lived in Cedar Falls for 3 generations. Edmund worked the family farm inherited from his father, while Martha was known throughout the community as a devout woman who attended services at the Cedar Falls Presbyterian Church every Sunday without fail. Their first 2 pregnancies had been normal, resulting in healthy children who had since grown to school age. Nothing in their family history suggested any hereditary conditions that might explain what had happened with the triplets. Dr. Morrison consulted with colleagues at the URI State Medical College in Iowa City, sending detailed written descriptions of the condition since travel with the infants was deemed impossible. The responding physicians were initially skeptical, with Dr. Harrison Webb writing back that such a condition is not compatible with life, and you must be mistaken in your observations. However, Dr. Morrison's reputation for accuracy and his detailed documentation eventually convinced his colleagues that something truly extraordinary was occurring in Cedar Falls. As the days passed, the mystery deepened rather than resolved. The triplets not only survived but appeared to be thriving. Their weight increased normally, and they showed typical newborn reflexes and responses. Most puzzling was how they were receiving nourishment. Martha Whitmore reported that when she held each child to her breast, they somehow managed to feed, though she could see no mouth or opening through which milk could pass. The feeding process left her deeply disturbed, as she described feeling a strange warmth and tingling sensation during nursing, as if something was drawing sustenance from her in ways beyond the physical. Dr. Morrison's journal entries from this period reveal his growing unease with the case. On February 22nd, he writes, "I have practiced medicine for 15 years and have seen birth defects of every conceivable variety, but this defies all medical understanding. These children should not be alive, yet they are not merely surviving, but developing normally in every aspect except for their impossible facial condition. I find myself questioning whether what I am observing belongs to the realm of medicine or something far beyond our current understanding of natural law." The doctor's scientific curiosity led him to conduct increasingly detailed examinations. Using the finest instruments available, he attempted to locate any microscopic openings in the facial tissue that might explain the children's ability to breathe and feed. His findings, meticulously recorded, showed that the skin was completely unbroken and appeared to be of normal thickness and texture. Under magnification, it showed typical cellular structure with no unusual formations or hidden passages. During one examination in the second week of February, Dr. Morrison made a discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. While carefully examining the area where the eldest triplet's eyes should have been, he noticed that the skin seemed to respond to light. When he held a lamp close to the child's face, the smooth flesh would subtly change color, darkening in the precise pattern of where eyelids would naturally be. More disturbing still, when he moved the light, the color changes followed the movement, as if the child was tracking the light source through the unbroken skin. This observation led to a series of tests that challenged everything Dr. Morrison thought he knew about human physiology. He discovered that all three children responded to sounds, turning their heads toward voices and noises with the precision of children with normal hearing. They reacted to touch and temperature changes appropriately. Most unsettling, they seemed to respond to the emotional states of people around them, becoming agitated when adults were distressed and calm when surrounded by peaceful caregivers. Word of the extraordinary birth began to spread beyond Cedar Falls despite the Whitmore family's attempts at privacy. Traveling physicians, medical students, and curiosity seekers began arriving in the small community, all hoping to witness the impossible children. Dr. Morrison found himself in the uncomfortable position of gatekeeper, trying to balance scientific inquiry with the family's need for privacy and the children's well-being. Among the early visitors was Dr. Elizabeth Hartwell, one of the few female physicians practicing in Iowa at that time. Dr. Hartwell had studied in Vienna and brought with her knowledge of the most advanced European medical techniques. Her examination of the triplets, conducted in early March, provided additional insights that only deepened the mystery. Dr. Hartwell's approach differed from Dr. Morrison's more traditional methods. She focused on what she termed energetic medicine, a practice she had learned from Austrian physicians who were beginning to explore the body's electrical and magnetic properties. Using a primitive galvanometer, she detected unusual electrical activity in the triplets' facial regions, patterns that did not match any known biological phenomena. Her most significant discovery came when she noticed that the electrical readings from all three children synchronized during certain activities. When one child was feeding, the electrical patterns of all three would shift in unison. When one was sleeping, the others would show corresponding changes in their readings. This suggested a connection between the children that went far beyond normal sibling bonds. Dr. Hartwell's report, submitted to the Vienna Medical Journal, described the case as evidence of a biological phenomenon that challenges our fundamental understanding of individual consciousness and the boundaries of human physiology. Her academic language barely concealed her amazement at what she had witnessed. As March progressed, the children's extraordinary nature became even more apparent. They had developed what could only be described as a form of communication that operated without speech or facial expressions. When one child was uncomfortable, the others would immediately become restless. They slept in perfect synchronization, their breathing patterns matching exactly. Most remarkably, they seemed to share a single appetite, requiring feeding only when all three were simultaneously hungry. The psychological impact on the Whitmore family was severe. Martha, despite her initial horror, had developed a fierce protective instinct toward the children. She insisted they were her, babies regardless of their unusual condition, and refused to consider the suggestions from some community members that the children represented some form of divine punishment or supernatural occurrence. Edmund's response was more complex and troubled. A practical man who had always relied on logic and hard work to solve problems, he found himself confronted with something that defied rational explanation. His journal, discovered years later during the settlement of the family estate, reveals a man struggling with questions that had no answers. He wrote, "I love my children, but I fear them as well. How can I protect them from a world that will see them as monsters when I myself do not understand what they are?" The community's reaction was mixed and often hostile. While some residents offered support and assistance to the family, others viewed the children as omens of disaster or evidence of supernatural interference in natural order. The local Presbyterian minister, Reverend Thomas Mackenzie, found himself in a difficult position when asked to address the theological implications of the children's existence. Reverend Mackenzie's sermons from that period, preserved in the church archives, show his struggle to reconcile Christian doctrine with the undeniable reality of the triplets. He ultimately concluded that the children represented a test of faith and Christian charity, urging his congregation to show compassion rather than fear. However, his private correspondence reveals his own deep uncertainty about the spiritual dimensions of the case. By April, the children had attracted attention from beyond the medical community. Representatives from several prominent universities arrived to study them, along with researchers interested in what they termed anomalous biological phenomena. The Whitmore home became an impromptu research station, with scholars and scientists conducting round-the-clock observations. Dr. Morrison found his role evolving from country physician to coordinator of an unprecedented scientific investigation. His journals from this period show the strain of managing multiple research initiatives while trying to ensure the children's welfare. He writes, "Every day brings new questions, but precious few answers. We have assembled some of the finest minds in medicine and natural philosophy, yet we are no closer to understanding these children than we were on the day they were born." The children's development continued to follow normal patterns in most respects. They gained weight appropriately, their motor skills developed on schedule, and they showed signs of normal cognitive development despite their inability to see or speak in conventional ways. However, their synchronized behaviors became more pronounced and complex as they grew. Dr. Hartwell documented incidents where the children seemed to share not only physical sensations, but emotional states and even what appeared to be thoughts. When researchers would examine one child, the others would show physiological responses identical to the child being studied, despite being in separate rooms. This phenomenon was observed and verified by multiple independent witnesses, making it impossible to dismiss as observer error or wishful thinking. The most disturbing incident occurred in late April during a particularly thorough examination conducted by Dr. Morrison and two visiting physicians from Chicago. While examining the youngest triplet's facial structure, Dr. Morrison applied gentle pressure to the area where the child's mouth should have been. At the exact moment he pressed, all three children simultaneously opened their mouths, though no opening was visible on any of their faces. The movement was unmistakably that of a mouth opening wide, as if crying out in pain or surprise, but the smooth skin remained unbroken. The synchronized nature of the response, combined with the clearly intentional mouth movements, provided undeniable evidence that the children possessed normal facial structures beneath the mysterious covering of unbroken skin. This discovery led to new questions about the nature of their condition. Was the facial covering a form of natural tissue that had grown over normal features? Was it a developmental anomaly that had sealed normal openings? Or was something else at work, something that existed outside the realm of conventional medical understanding? Dr. Morrison's attempts to answer these questions led him to consider possibilities that challenged his scientific worldview. In a journal entry from May the 2nd, he writes, "I have spent my career relying on empirical observation and logical deduction to understand the human body. These children force me to consider whether there are aspects of human existence that operate beyond the physical laws I have always trusted. What if consciousness, sensation, and even sustenance can operate through mechanisms we have never recognized or understood?" As spring turned to summer, the research intensified. The Whitmore farm had been transformed into an informal laboratory, with equipment and researchers from across the Midwest gathered to study the children. The constant activity was taking its toll on the family, particularly Martha, who struggled to maintain any sense of normal maternal care amid the chaos of scientific investigation. The children themselves seemed largely unaffected by the attention. They continued to develop normally, showing curiosity about their environment and forming what appeared to be normal emotional attachments to their parents and regular caregivers. However, they remained completely synchronized in their behaviors, movements, and biological rhythms. In June, Dr. Hartwell made a discovery that would change the direction of the research entirely. While studying the electrical patterns she had been tracking since March, she noticed that the children's synchronized activity extended beyond their immediate vicinity. Using more sensitive equipment borrowed from the physics department at the University of Iowa, She detected electromagnetic fluctuations that seemed to emanate from the children and extend far beyond what should have been possible given their size and the known properties of biological electrical fields. The implications were staggering. If the children were somehow generating or manipulating electromagnetic energy in ways that allowed them to function despite their physical limitations, it suggested capabilities that had never been documented in human beings. Dr. Hartwell's measurements indicated that the energy fields extended at least several hundred yards from the children, far beyond what any known biological process could produce. This discovery attracted attention from researchers in the emerging field of electrical engineering. Thomas Edison himself sent a representative to Iowa to investigate reports of unusual electromagnetic phenomena associated with the triplets. The subsequent experiments conducted using the most advanced electrical measurement devices available in 1886 confirmed Dr. Hartwell's findings and added new layers to the mystery. The electromagnetic activity was not random, but followed complex patterns that seemed to correlate with the children's activities and emotional states. When they were content, the patterns were regular and rhythmic. When they were distressed, the patterns became chaotic and intense. Most remarkably, the patterns appeared to synchronize with natural electromagnetic phenomena, including thunderstorms in the aurora borealis, suggesting a connection to planetary electrical systems that no one could explain. As summer progressed, the research took on an increasingly urgent tone. The children were growing and developing rapidly, and researchers feared that their window for understanding the phenomenon might be limited. If the condition was somehow related to their newborn state, it might change or disappear as they matured. Dr. Morrison organized the most comprehensive examination yet attempted, bringing together physicians, electrical engineers, physicists, and even a few researchers who specialized in what they cautiously termed unexplained phenomena. The examination, conducted over 3 days in July, produced the most detailed documentation of the children's condition, but also raised more questions than it answered. The team confirmed that the children possessed normal bone structure, normal organ development, and normal neurological responses. Their blood chemistry was typical for healthy infants. Their brain activity, measured using primitive electroencephalography techniques, showed normal patterns. Yet they continued to breathe, feed, and respond to stimuli without any visible means of doing so. The most significant finding came when the team attempted to trace the electromagnetic fields that Dr. Hartwell had detected. Using multiple measurement devices positioned around the Whitmore property, they discovered that the fields formed a complex three-dimensional pattern centered on the children but extending in all directions. The pattern was geometric and mathematically precise, resembling what some observers described as a three-dimensional mandala or crystalline structure made of pure energy. This discovery led to speculation that the children might be generating what some researchers termed a biological field that operated according to principles unknown to conventional science. The field appeared to be responsible for their ability to function despite their physical limitations, somehow providing the energy and information exchange necessary for life. Dr. Morrison's journal entries from this period show his struggle to maintain scientific objectivity in the face of phenomena that challenge every assumption about biological reality. He writes, "We have documented capabilities that should not exist, witnessed events that contradict established scientific law, and measured energy patterns that suggest these children operate according to principles we have never encountered. Yet they are undeniably human, undeniably alive, and undeniably my patients. I am forced to expand my understanding of what it means to be human." The summer research culminated in an incident that would bring the investigation to an abrupt end. On August 15th, during a particularly intense series of electromagnetic measurements, something extraordinary occurred. According to multiple witness accounts, the children suddenly began to emit visible light, a soft golden glow that seemed to emanate from their skin rather than being reflected from external sources. The glow lasted for approximately 10 minutes, during which time all of the electrical measurement equipment in the vicinity stopped functioning. The children remained calm throughout the incident, but every adult present reported feeling a profound sense of peace and clarity that lasted for hours afterward. Dr. Morrison described it as a moment of transcendent understanding that somehow communicated more about these children's nature then months of scientific investigation. The light emission was witnessed by 12 researchers and documented by multiple independent observers. Attempts to photograph the phenomenon failed, as the cameras of that era were not sensitive enough to capture the subtle luminescence. However, the electromagnetic equipment that had been monitoring the children registered readings unlike anything previously recorded. Following this incident, the children's parents made a decision that surprised everyone involved in the research. Martha and Edmund Whitmore announced that they were ending all scientific investigation and asking all researchers to leave their property. They had decided to raise their children in privacy, away from the constant scrutiny and measurement that had dominated their lives for 6 months. Dr. Morrison's final journal entry regarding the case, dated August 20th, 1886, reflects his respect for the family's decision while acknowledging his profound frustration at leaving so many questions unanswered. He writes, "Perhaps there are mysteries that are not meant to be solved through scientific investigation. Perhaps some aspects of existence are intended to remain beyond our understanding, serving as reminders that the universe contains possibilities we have not yet imagined." The Whitmore family relocated to a remote farm in northern Minnesota, far from the attention and curiosity that had surrounded them in Iowa. They lived quietly there for many years, raising their extraordinary children away from public scrutiny. The few accounts that survive from neighbors and occasional visitors suggest that the triplets grew into intelligent, capable young people who maintained their synchronized behaviors and mysterious abilities throughout their lives. The children never developed conventional speech or facial features, yet they clearly communicated with their family and each other through means that observers found difficult to describe. They worked alongside their father on the farm, displaying normal physical strength and coordination despite their unusual condition. They seemed content with their isolated existence, showing no signs of distress about their differences from other people. Dr. Morrison continued to correspond with the family for several years, receiving occasional updates on the children's development. His final letter from Martha Whitmore, received in 1895, reported that the triplets remained healthy and had developed what she described as abilities that go far beyond anything we could have imagined. She provided no details about these abilities, but her letter conveyed both pride in her children and a deep sense of responsibility for protecting them from a world that might not understand or accept their extraordinary nature. The last confirmed sighting of the triplets was in 1902, when they would have been 16 years old. A traveling merchant passing through their area reported encountering 3 young people who perfectly matched their description, working in the fields of a remote farm. He noted that they moved in perfect synchronization and seemed to communicate without speech, but appeared healthy and content with their lives. After 1902, the family seemed to vanish entirely. The farm was eventually abandoned, and local records provide no indication of what became of the Whitmores or their remarkable children. Some researchers have speculated that the family moved even further into the wilderness, seeking complete isolation from civilization. Others have suggested that the children's unusual abilities might have allowed them to exist in ways that left no conventional traces. The medical records from the case were sealed by Dr. Morrison's estate and remained unavailable to researchers for nearly 40 years after his death. When they were finally released in 1923, they sparked renewed interest in the case among physicians and researchers studying unusual biological phenomena. However, by that time, any hope of locating the family or continuing the investigation had long since disappeared. Modern medical science has never encountered another case quite like the Whitmore triplets. While various birth defects can affect facial development, the combination of complete facial covering with normal life functions has never been documented before or since. The electromagnetic phenomena described in the 1886 research remain unexplained, as contemporary science still lacks adequate tools to understand or replicate the energy patterns that were observed. The case has become a source of fascination for researchers interested in the boundaries of human possibility. Some view it as evidence that human consciousness and physiology are capable of adaptations far beyond what conventional medicine recognizes. Others consider it an example of how extreme circumstances can trigger biological responses that operate according to principles we have yet to discover. Perhaps most intriguingly, The Whitmore triplets represent a reminder that human existence may contain possibilities that extend far beyond our current understanding. Their ability to live, grow, and apparently thrive despite their impossible condition suggests that life itself may be more adaptable and mysterious than we have ever imagined. Their story challenges us to consider whether the boundaries we place on human potential are based on incomplete knowledge rather than absolute truth. The children who were born without faces in Iowa in 1886 remain one of the most extraordinary medical mysteries ever documented. Their existence, brief as our knowledge of it was, opened questions about the nature of human consciousness, the limits of biological adaptation, and the possibility that there are aspects of existence that operate beyond the reach of conventional scientific understanding. They remind us that the universe may contain wonders that we have not yet learned to recognize, much less explain.